Ring doorbell went off again. Just got back from driving into Lebanon to get my blood work done. She did really good. Didn't even leave a mark or nothing. It's great. Go in, went right in. I shared in my video how fast it was. Then while I was in Lebanon, I drove a little ways, and I was looking for like a mystic shop that maybe they sell some, hi baby, some crystals or some herbs for my, and I found one, but I have a video, I'll input it in here. It wound up being, I think, just a lady's home, and it was not something that I wanted to entertain by myself. So, a video I put here. But I want to share. I don't want people to get the wrong idea that I'm sharing the things in my life, because I want people to understand that long ago I used to feel like I was a victim, and I felt like I needed to explain or define my struggle in my life and what was going on. And that's not me at all anymore. I'm more the one who wants to share so you guys can learn from what I've learned in my journey. And I do share a lot. I'm not much of a gatekeeper. I do like people to succeed, and I don't want them to feel like they, that there are any secrets. Because growing up, there were always a lot of secrets in my life. And I share in one of my journaling that, I'm tired of keeping people's secrets. And people would know that I knew a lot of things, because I would pick up on a lot of stuff. I watched. I paid attention to a lot of things. And I'm not here to advertise about my struggles. I'm here to talk about the pain in a way that how you can move past it by looking at the signs around you in your life. And that, challenges, everybody's got challenges, aren't meant to be what people feel are punishments. And at times I did feel that way, and I shared during one of my journaling that I really didn't think God loved me anymore, and that I was truly on my own because I felt alone. And how my life has evolved into not allowing those obstacles that were put in front of me to control my life. And I began transforming my life. And I had to transform my life because it was literally falling to pieces. I was just around people who weren't healthy for me. And, I wound up having to do a lot of soul searching and meditating and research. And I started with researching my life. I went and got medical records and school records because a lot of things just weren't making sense to me. And I went and got a lot of tests, neurological testing, and I did some blood testing and getting my DNA lined up, really figuring out my roots and my ancestry. And it helped me pinpoint and understand that things that were in my life, the stories of my life. I studied them. Not too long. I didn't dwell on them or, hold tight to anything. I took what the knowledge I learned and put it into practice. And I stopped feeding a narrative that I felt like I was a victim. And instead of feeding it with words and stuff, I filled everything with knowledge. I don't know how else to explain that, but that's pretty much it. I had to build a lot of boundaries and cut off a lot of people and a lot of things in my life last year. And it wasn't, specifically targeted, so to speak, to certain people. It wasn't a targeted, attack. It was me having to master myself, finding my true strengths, and understanding the struggles that I was going through, and the history of my upbringing to make sense of where I'm at today. And I started that way, and then once I realized, I can't be stuck in this stinking thinking, So I needed to make some differences and changes in my life, and that meant I needed to cut off a lot of people. And I wasn't always in a rush to post about it, but I was very vocal to the people who needed to hear me the most. I went and I deleted about 750 people from my Facebook, my social media. They weren't my friends. Why do I have them all following me? I deleted over 750 people from my social media, because I realized that, they were never there for me. They never did anything for me. They were just energy vampires pulling from me. And also, you have to understand your algorithm. When you're mixed in with all kinds of different people, you're mixed in with all their algorithms. And I didn't need their stinking thinking on top of my stinking thinking. Do you get it? So I really needed to cut people off. And if you were cut off, don't take it personally. It's just I needed to get myself right, I didn't want to advertise my struggle, but I did want people to understand that I am working on myself, and that many of the people who they took offense to me working on myself, because it showed them in a light that they didn't appreciate, because by me fixing myself put them in a place where they're like, oh crap, she's really got a point there, and so a lot of people weren't very happy with me, and still aren't. But I didn't feel like all of my struggles needed to be explained or talked about, but I do feel like the lessons that I've learned through these struggles are important to talk about. The lessons that I've gone through can be beneficial to you and others. Yeah. My growth and the things that I've learned through my process of healing is a real benefit to other people. A real great testimony And as long as people don't hold on to just the pain and suffering, you got to work through it. You got to transform that struggle into, you know, something new, something better. You know, you've learned this about yourself. Great. But now what are you going to do to not let that happen again, or to, you know, build those boundaries so that you're not in a situation that puts you in harm ever again. And enduring life, instead of just enduring life, you're thriving. And that's something that can be talked about. And I think, you know, I was watching a monk. He, you know, I do some, meditations and stuff, and chakras and all kinds of things where I work on myself. And he was talking about how, you know, you really don't need to be, the more you talk about your struggles, the more fuel you're adding to that. So just shut up. Stop talking about it. But I think you should talk about some of it in order to help other people, because people aren't going to learn if they don't know. So if you don't teach them, how are they going to know? You can't just say, stop talking about your feelings, stop talking about your struggles. Well, sometimes that's part of the healing journey. You have to talk about it. If you just bottle it up and push it down, and you don't really communicate it, if you don't hear it or hear how you're talking to other people about it, you're not learning anything. You know, you're just sitting and let it stew. And that's not healthy. Sometimes you just really got to voice it out and let it go, let it land, and see where it goes, you know. So I didn't 100% agree with him saying, just shut the fuck up. I understand where he's coming from. Like, you know, you don't have to talk about everything. And we as a society do that. We get on here on our phones and we like to talk about ourselves. And, you know, our voice doesn't always need to be heard, because what we're saying is just our projection. It's just our point of view. It may not be yours, but there are some people who can resonate with what you're saying. And I think it is helpful as long as we move on from it, right? And that's, you know, what I'm talking about here today. Planting those seeds of understanding, not just seeds of pain, you know, those seeds of, okay, now where do you go from here? How do we move on from this? And that's why I like to tell my stories, because my day-to-day living and people I interact with and the things that I do, and, you know, all this has a part in my healing journey, and it does for you too. And I like to share those things because it's an understanding that we're in this together. You can't get through life on your own. You'll be one miserable sumbitch if you try. You really are. Will be. You know, it does take a village. It really does. Because you don't know everything. And you haven't been through as much as I've been through, and I haven't been through everything that you've been through. And you can share perspectives and things that I would never ever think of, because I haven't had to go through that. And I think it's important for us to share our struggles. I do. But not be stuck in it, like I said. So, thanks for your time.